we're gonna do a zone 3 garden tour.
Okay, so what you're about to watch was filmed yesterday, and we have poor man's fertilizer falling and it's like called the greenhouse is definitely staying between the 10 and 20 degrees Celsius mode with this whole setup I have. So if you want to learn more about that, then I do have a greenhouse video you probably are going to want to check out. We're good. It's just, it is cold outside. It's snowing.
So I'm doing a lot of changes, and that's actually mostly what I'm going to show you guys today. I'm changing this whole area so you guys notice. Yes, the greenhouse is gone. The Magidome's gone. It's not because the Magidome isn't a wonderful kit. It is a wonderful kit. Don't get me wrong. I just needed a bigger kit. The Magidome does expand to whatever size you want it to be at, but I just needed something that's like up, ready to go, no construction, just snap of the fingers. And I've got some really funny footage from that greenhouse being set up. The only holes you can actually aim for. This here is just my classic garden bed. I have tilled, or should I say Bronx has tilled, my dog. This is just that trellising, the puppeteering thing, which I'm gonna put over my husband's stuff's there. I'm gonna put over there. I'm gonna switch out one of the wood ones. I've had those for, what is that now, guys? 3 years? That's year 3. They're holding up pretty good. But I'm gonna replace the one out for something different. All this garbage is from my greenhouse coming out, and I haven't moved everything in there. We literally finished that at like 10:30 last night by headlamp. Showed a muscle saw. So this is the tree, the apple tree I had sitting there last year. I wanted to try to overwinter this in a container. That container, it worked. So the video I did about overwintering containers last year, particularly the one where I said put other containers around it and then fill that space with leaves and mulch and then tarp it or cover it in some way, it works because that's budding and it's most definitely alive. So that is very, very cool. This is the greenhouse. It's not fancy. It's literally, it's like 9 feet long by 6.5 feet wide. Cost me a grand total of $600 from Rona. It's cheap. I don't expect it to last very long. I won't recommend it because I don't know what its longevity is just from putting it apart or putting it together. It's iffy. So all these now need to get moved in. Yeah, my tomato container area is just, it's covered in its mulch and that sort of thing. Actually, no, there is something that you guys would benefit from over there. See, my brain is working this morning. This is, yeah. Can you still see them or have they all disintegrated? Oh no, here, we got one. See this? That is the tomato. And if you guys remember the videos that I've done for closing down the garden, this is one of the methods you use. Is actually leaving the plant in place and just chopping it off at the top. And you can see like it's very flexible. It's starting to already disintegrate. The soil underneath is nice and fluffy, which is what we want. So yeah, that actually is valuable to you guys. And all my beds have that. But this one I knew had tomatoes in it. So it was gonna have like an extra amount of very sticky uppy ones. Is that a word? Sticky uppy? My goodness. No wonder people question my validity sometimes. Okay, let's go to the front yard. The front yard is equally as uneventful. I have got nothing in place other than the mulch. My weeds are coming. I don't have any peas up yet, and I did winter sow peas. I am expecting those soon, but yeah, my weeds are already taking off, which is wonderful. Like, how do they do that? The snow's been gone like 3 days. Anyways, this is like a cold frame. It's actually the only cold frame I have. The rest of my cold frames are low tunnels, and I only have one. And then I have those cozy coats, the red cozy coats. Cozy coats will probably go out next weekend. Low tunnel, maybe tomorrow. And I'm planting it with like bok choy today. sometime. And the process is exactly how you expect the process to be. You make the line, you put the seed in, you cover it up, done. Very simple. And that's a self-watering bed. So I'm going to fill it with water and destroy. So that's it. Let's go inside and look at seed starts. Okay, seed starting set up. I've got 4 trays here with lights. Nothing's up. Oh, I lied. There is something up. So there is some stuff up. I am wrong. This in here are all flowers. My tags all lost their marker. Clearly did not use permanent marker. When I say you guys are smarter than me, that is one most definite piece of evidence for that. So these are all flowers in here. Ooh, these are tomatoes. Tomatoes. Oh no, that's more flowers actually on this end. These are tomatoes though. And these are loofahs that sprouted and now have proceeded to do nothing. Once I put them in here, no idea what's going on. So I actually maybe need to look at those. So these are on top of heat mats. This one's just like a classic heat mat. This one's not on a heat mat. Maybe that's a loofah's issue. So this one's just like on the normal heat mat that I showed last year. It's like the one that's the size of the tray. These ones up here are a little bit unique in the sense that they have a matte portion where it indicates this is where the mat is, or this is the hottest point. And then it does heat to the edges, but this is less heated or lightly heated. So if you had a seed that didn't like really high heats, you could move them off of that patch and then just slide this mat over to use the edges. These are my grandma's mats. So yes, for 10 years, I used one single mat for all my seed starts. See, you don't have to be fancy. These are from my grandma. These are the old school ones before they had the gauges that you could turn the temperature down on. This is what they had. And you can see, kind of where the light is. So the light is right here. What is that? That is a girl measurement. That's every husband's nightmare right there. Both literally and figuratively. Well, is that both literally? Anyways, if you got it, the joke, you got it. 1 inch, 2 inches from the top, and then this one, I have it. So I don't have these level. That would drive a normal person nuts. It is on an angle because this dome is taller than this dome, and that's the way it goes. You want them nice and close. In here, same story. These are LED ones, so I can get them even closer. I have them. Oh, you can't even see. It's too bright. I have these right on top. Like I can fit a finger because these won't melt because this is like an LED light. T5. Oh, hi, cool. No, yes, hi. That's done that way. So this one, I flip the other way because I have tomatoes and peppers on that side. This side, I have like cauliflower and broccoli. So, see, I saved my cauliflower and broccoli. I was walking by that as I was going up the stairs, and that reminded me of a comment I saw this morning where someone was like, "You're a fake," or no, it was the science on this channel's junk. That's what it was. I get these all the time. But I think for those of you that actually care about the levels of scientific rigor, if you will, and we saw this a lot during COVID. So there are scientists that know the rules that were set out when they went to school and what they've practiced and what they believe. They are stuck with what they know to be true at the time of which they were in school. That's fine. That is a version of scientists that needs to be there because science is kind of like a democracy in the sense that you need different levels of scientists to make the dream work, if you will, because you don't want these, really big dreamers to give you ideas that are not tested and proven, that they cooked up. And so these guys help balance that out. That's number one. Number two is a scientist that enjoys the facts that they learned and what they know and what their colleagues believe and is accepted by society. So some people really like those ones, and they don't like to challenge them. They will challenge the known facts in society or what's, held to the standard of what we know. They will challenge them when they get new data or new evidence en masse to say, okay, yeah, I think that that theory has changed and I accept the new theory that's out there. And then there are scientists that are kind of dreamers, searchers, experimenters, and they accept the fact that there are rules and accepted theories for things, applied science. They know that is the rules, that's what the current thing is, but they're always seeking for new answers. And whether they're seeking through that, through, research journals and reading and science, it's called scientific rigor actually, and it's something that is valued in scientists when they go out and they look for new things that challenge their current theories, looking for the new answer or what's changed. And that's what, in my opinion, what science should be, because how would you ever come up with a new idea if you didn't explore the possibilities? There's those ones, the dreamers. So the really dogmatic ones offset these really crazy dreamers. And yeah, so I think that's where I kind of maybe rub people the wrong way, because if you haven't guessed, and you're probably already are like, oh, she's the dreamer. And I am. So what I do is I'll accept that, no-till is the answer to soil erosion. I accept that. That is a valid point. But is no-till the only solution for gardening, or, large farm scale? And could it cause issues? Like, is there problems that could arise from no-till? To just accept that no-till is the answer and there's no other answer and you should just do that, for me as a scientist, it does not jive. It does not jive, folks. So that's why I do challenge this stuff. I don't get dogmatic. I don't have like a favorite scientist that I'm like, oh, everything that comes out of this woman's mouth is absolute gospel. I think the answer is probably in the middle of a lot of scientists, and I don't think I'm right at all, ever. So if anyone ever is like, I don't know, Ashley, I think you're off on that, I will take that with open arms, because I'm actually interested in learning scientific rigor. And so if someone showed me a different article or a different journal or a different experiment or just even a trial in a backyard that showed something completely contrary to what I'm saying, like, I am genuinely interested in seeing what that is. And I would never be like, oh no, you're wrong. I would never tell scientists, you're horribly wrong. I'd be like, oh wow, that's actually a really cool point. I don't know if it's because I'm a nice person or what, but yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna do a video on how I'm going to set this bad boy up, I think, because I feel like you guys probably would benefit from that. Heaters, lights, it sounds weird, but it's true. So I might actually do a video on that now that I'm standing in front of that. I think that's all I have for a garden tour. Sorry, it was probably pretty long. My science rant probably took it to the ends of the earth lengthwise. So I know you're doing videos today, filming, compaction, till, no-till, that whole science, a very, very thorough look at that. And then the other one I'm doing today is, microbes. That's right. I'm doing microbes. Microbes in your soil, are they important? Do you have to change things up? That sort of thing. So if you're looking for the days that those will be posted, microbes or the compaction one, depending on which one I can edit the quickest, it will be on Wednesday. The other one will be on Friday, just like regular old clockwork. Subscribe. Hit the like button, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.